The last shuttle descended through the velvet skies of Iril, its sleek obsidian hull slicing the upper atmosphere like a blade through silk. Naren Vale pressed his forehead to the cool glass viewport, eyes fixed on the landscape unfurling beneath him, a web of glowing rivers etched like veins across an indigo terrain, bioarchitecture rising in spirals and domes, each pulsing with internal light. To him, the planet resembled a breathing organism more than a world. This was to be his new home. A planet where words meant little and meaning bled between skin and thought. The thought didn't comfort him. Not yet. "We'll be landing shortly," the IRL pilot said softly, without turning. Her words came not from her lips, but directly into Naren's mind. He still wasn't used to their method of communication, telepathy that touched not only the brain but memory, emotion, instinct. Every word came with the ghost of feeling. They didn't just speak, they resonated. "Understood," Naren replied, his voice almost mechanical in comparison. He was tired. Not just from the long travel from Orisa, the human moon colony he'd called home for 32 years, but from everything that came before it. The negotiations. The grief. The quiet desperation in every diplomat's eyes when they asked him, begged him, to consider the proposal. Marry an IRL noble. Seal peace. Stop the slow war before it became open flame. And he had said yes. Because saying no meant another generation of children growing up with the sound of orbital alarms. And because, deep down, he didn't have much left to lose. The pilot's mind brushed his gently, permission to open communication again. He allowed it. "You are afraid," she observed. "Not of her," Naren answered, and meant it. Just, everything around her. The pilot's presence withdrew without further comment, leaving Naren alone with his thoughts as the shuttle descended into the crystalline city of Evereth. The ceremony was unlike anything Naren had expected. No vows spoken aloud. No procession, no grand hall. Instead, he was guided through a spiraling garden filled with songglass trees, their branches humming in harmony as he passed beneath them. Bioluminescent petals drifted in the air, glowing softly against the deep violet sky. At the garden's center stood Silen Reth. She wore no crown, no official regalia. Her robes shimmered with the same subtle light as the trees, as if she belonged to the world around her. Her hair, if it could be called that, was a halo of fine energy threads, shifting with her emotions. Her skin was a soft gray-blue, marked with faint glowing patterns that moved as she breathed. Naren didn't breathe when he first saw her. He couldn't. She was not beautiful in any human sense. She was other, in a way that defied language, elegant, ungraspable, like trying to describe a dream after waking. Her mind reached for his, gently, like fingers testing the surface of water. "May I?" He allowed the touch. A ripple passed through him. Memory, sensation, emotion. Her presence was calm. Intelligent. Questioning. "Do you come as prisoner?" Her thought voice was clear. "No," his voice came out rough. "I come willingly." A pause. Then, "Do you come with hope?" He hesitated. "I come with intent." Another silence. Longer this time. Then she extended her hand. Not physically, mentally. A connection. Deeper. "Then we begin." The joining ceremony was internal. In IRL tradition, the wedding was not witnessed by others but experienced by the two souls involved. Through linked minds, they shared key moments of their lives. Not words. Memories. She showed him her first hunting rite, chasing light creatures across the open moons of her childhood. He showed her his mother's face, aged with moonlight, holding his hand as they watched Orisa's first atmospheric bloom. She showed him the ache of leadership. The isolation of noble blood. He showed her a brother lost to silence in a long-forgotten border skirmish. They didn't speak of love. Not yet. But something like understanding began to build. Later, after the ceremony, Silen led him to the chamber of vow weaving, a sacred room not found on any map. The room itself was alive. Walls that pulsed with slow breath. A single pool at the center, reflecting not light but memory. Above them, strands of energy moved through the air, waiting to be shaped. Here, Silen sent, is where our truths must align. This is where we bind not names, but essence. I don't know how, Naren said honestly. You do. It is within you. I will guide you. They knelt beside the pool. Silen reached up and touched one of the energy strands. It shimmered. Slowly, deliberately, she began to weave it into a shape, abstract, shifting, like a sigil made of thought. My vow, I will protect your name even when it is spoken in accusation. I will not shape you into what I wish. I will not turn your truth against you. The woven strand solidified, floating above the pool. Silen gestured for him to choose one of his own. Naren hesitated. His hands hovered. The strands were alive, sentient, in some quiet way. Each one hummed differently, like keys on a piano. He touched one. Memories rose. His brother. The war. The moment he chose peace. He wove slowly. My vow, he said aloud, not trusting his mind to carry it fully. I will not forget the cost of what brought us here. I will not ask you to be less than what you are so I can sleep easier. I will meet you in truth, or not at all. The strand joined hers. The chamber pulsed in approval. The pool glowed. They stood. Not lovers. Not yet. But something had begun. The first night trial was not a secret. Naren had read about it in the IRL texts translated during the Alliance drafting. A rite of passage. A test of compatibility and clarity. Not every IRL marriage required it, only those between blooded nobles and outsiders. Silen didn't ask if he was ready. She waited. Then led him into the threshold. The chamber was a dome of living crystal, with no doors, no obvious technology. Only light, and shadow, and memory. You will not be alone, Silen said. But you will feel alone. He nodded. What happens if I fail? The joining unravels. The treaty holds, but without the ceremonial layer. I remain bound to duty. But not to you. And if I pass? Silen didn't answer with words. She stepped close, brushed her fingers along his temple, an intimate gesture in her culture. Then we begin again. As something more than duty. As choice. He stepped into the trial chamber. The chamber's light vanished. In total darkness, Naren heard nothing. Then, wind. Orisa's wind. Dry, thin. Howling between the colony towers. He blinked and found himself standing in the streets of his childhood, surrounded by ruins. Bombed-out buildings. Smoke rising. Screams in the distance. But this wasn't memory. This was something else. A child ran past him, no older than 10. Pale, trembling. His own face. He was watching himself. Then the child turned, and his mouth opened, but no sound came. Why did you forget me? The child's mind said. Not spoken. Transmitted. Naren staggered backward. I didn't, he said aloud. I never forgot. Then why did you bury me beneath duty? Why did you stop telling my story? Because it hurt too much. He didn't say it. But the chamber knew. The scene shifted. He saw his brother's face. The last moment they spoke, before the mission, before the silence. I'll be back by solstice, his brother had said. Don't let them make you something you're not. Then the transmission went dark. No body recovered. Now his brother stood before him, alive in this illusion, watching. You let them make you hollow, the illusion said. You thought duty was redemption. Naren shook his head. No, I thought it was survival. You forgot to grieve. The pain broke something open in him. He knelt, breathing hard. The chamber pulsed. Then everything vanished. The next scene was gentler. A memory he didn't recognize, yet it felt familiar. A moonlit hill. Soft grass. Silence sat beside a younger version of herself, both watching a sky of falling stars. What do you see? The younger Silence asked. Threads, the elder replied. Each life is a thread. When one ends, another begins. Naren watched, transfixed. A voice whispered in his mind, silence, but deeper. Do you know why we test memory? Because memory is the root of self. To bind with another, you must first return to yourself. The final image came not as pain, but clarity. Naren stood alone in a mirrored space, facing not a memory, but his future self. Older. Tired. Wearing robes instead of uniform. You made it this far, future Naren said. But peace comes at a cost. What cost? Present Naren asked. Your certainty. The mirror fractured. A single choice remained. Step forward. Or turn back. He stepped. He woke not with a start, but with stillness. The chamber light brightened gradually. Silence stood at the threshold, waiting. She didn't ask if he passed. She already knew. Their minds brushed. You remembered your name, she said. Not the one others gave you. The one beneath. So did you, he whispered. They didn't embrace. Not yet. But when she reached out, he took her hand. No titles. No politics. Only two people, trying to begin something that might, one day, become love. Melari Tuvan did not remember the crash. She remembered fire, though. The sound of metal screaming, as if the ship itself had known it would not survive. She remembered her sister's voice, calling out once, and never again. Then, silence. A long, dreamless dark. She woke to light. Not bright. Soft. Filtered through blue-green leaves that shimmered like water even though there was no wind. She lay in a cocoon of something living, woven fibers that pulsed with warmth, responding to her heartbeat. Her skin felt scrubbed raw. Her mouth tasted like silver and salt. Above her, vines glittered with blossoms that glowed as if breathing. She is awake, came a voice. Melari jerked upright, a gasp tearing from her throat. Pain followed, white-hot along her ribs. A figure stepped forward, careful not to touch. His skin was opalescent ivory, his eyes deep gray with flickering color beneath like oil on water. His hair was translucent, like flowing strands of mineral. He wore no armor, no weapons. Just robes of layered silk that shimmered like moonlight on riverstone. Do not rise quickly, he said in a voice soft as dusk. Your body was broken. It still remembers. Where am I? Melari rasped. Frenari Sanctuary, he said. Within the heart of the glade of renewal. Who are you? Juhar Ethelin, he replied, then added with a half-bow, healer of the sixth current. Melari blinked. The words meant nothing. Everything felt upside down. You saved me. He tilted his head, considering. You were found by the river rooted. They heard your crash. I did what I could. Many of your injuries were extensive. Melari looked down. Her arms bore faint scars, but new skin had formed. She flexed her fingers. Nothing felt broken. Not anymore. How long? 9 cycles of rest, Juhar said. She didn't know what that meant. But it sounded like days. The last thing she remembered clearly was her sister, Tali, laughing in their bunk. They had been en route to the Kirill outpost for a maintenance job. Tali had always hated spaceflight. She'd said it made her dreams fall apart. Melari closed her eyes and wished she could forget everything. In the days that followed, Johar came often. Sometimes he brought food, smooth fruited dishes that tasted like lemon and honey mixed with night air. Sometimes he just sat. The Thranari did not press. They waited. Watched. Moved like river stones worn by time. Melari couldn't understand their rituals. Vines sang at night. Flowers bloomed only when you laughed. And once, Johar showed her a creature made of light and mist that floated beside him like a pet. When she asked what it was, he said, "A mirror spirit. It reflects what we cannot admit." She didn't like that idea. "You're all telepaths too?" she asked one evening. "Not as your kind might describe," Johar said. "We sense emotions. We share thought threads when offered. So you know what I'm feeling now?" He paused. "Not unless you wish me to." "Good," she muttered. "Because mostly it's a mess." He smiled then. Not condescending. Just, soft. "It is natural to mourn what cannot return." Melari said nothing. On the 13th day, Johar brought her to the Garden of Memory. It was a sacred rite, he explained, shared only with those considered part of the glade's protection. "I'm not part of anything," Melari said. "I was just passing through space. Yet the stars flung you here. And the garden opened. It does not open for all." Melari frowned. "That sounds like fate." Johar just said, "Some call it that. We call it listening." The garden stood beyond a curved stone arch veiled in blue fire. Johar walked through without hesitation. Melari followed. On the other side, the world changed. Trees shimmered with translucent bark, their leaves falling in reverse, rising from ground to branch. Flowers bloomed in air, forming lattices that floated gently with the breeze. The ground pulsed like a heartbeat beneath her feet. "Each Thranari tends a dream garden," Johar explained. "When we choose to show it, we open our truth." "What kind of truth?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he stepped into the field, knelt, and touched the ground. Immediately, a spiral of vines unfurled. They bloomed into shapes, not flowers, but memories. A child holding a rain globe. A woman with laughter lines painting a river wall. A group gathered around a table of crystal dishes. Johar himself, younger, eyes bright with learning. "These are my truths," he said quietly. "Each one must be tended. Even those that wound." Melari swallowed. Her throat ached. "I don't have anything to show," she whispered. "Just wreckage." "Wreckage grows strange flowers," Johar replied. "Let them bloom." "What if I don't want to?" "Then your sorrow will never know sunlight." That night, Melari sat alone in the glade. The stars above shimmered with blue moons. The plants around her pulsed softly, responding to her presence. She ran her fingers through the grass. It shivered. "What are you waiting for?" she asked. No one answered. But something in the earth seemed to listen. So she closed her eyes, touched the ground, and whispered her name. Melari Tuvan. Daughter of Leora and Gemin. Sister to Tali. A vine stirred. Slowly, painfully, it grew into shape. Her childhood bunk bed on Orisa. The sound of hydro pumps in the colony corridor. Her mother's lullaby. Another vine rose, faster. Tali, spinning her tools in one hand like a knife thrower. Tali, climbing into the pilot's seat, rolling her eyes. "Let's get this over with, Mel. You owe me CAF for dragging me out here." Then, smoke. Fire. Hands reaching. Then gone. Melari fell back, tears burning her cheeks. The garden pulsed gently. "You did not lose her," Johar said, stepping from the shadows. I did. You carry her. Melari shook her head. I see her, Johar said, eyes not on the vines but on Malari's own. In your choices. Your defiance. Your mourning. Malari's voice cracked. How do you stand it? I don't, Johar said. I walk with it. After that, the days became more fluid. Melari began to assist the glade's caretakers, harvesting the light fruit, tending the river roots. She learned the subtle ways the Thranari marked time through blossoms and tide. And Johar was always nearby. Not watching. Waiting. Like a patient stream carving stone. She began to wonder why. You don't owe me anything, she said one evening as they walked the twilight path. I know, he replied. Then why do you stay? He looked at her, and for once, allowed a truth to slip directly into her thoughts. Because when you speak, I feel the silence in myself begin to tremble. Melari looked away. But that night, she dreamed of him, not in memory, but in possibility. Weeks passed. Their closeness shifted. Not in grand gestures, but small ones. He brought her a carved pendant shaped like the double moons. She left him a braid of sky vine outside his meditation grove. No words were spoken. None were needed. Until the glade's guardian summoned Johar, and Melari overheard what was never meant for her ears. The humans will come, the guardian said. The outpost across the Vale has signaled their intent to retrieve her. She is not ready. It is not your decision, healer. Malari's heart dropped. Back to Orisa. Back to wreckage. Back to not knowing what to do next. That night, Johar came to her. He said nothing at first. Only offered a cup of flowering tea. She took it. Drank. Then asked, You knew they were coming? He nodded. Why didn't you tell me? Because I feared you would leave before I could say the thing that frightens me most. Melari looked at him. What thing? Johar's mind reached gently, cautiously. Then, I have never opened my dream garden to another. Melari froze. He took a breath. Not as a healer. As Johar. As a soul who wishes to remain beside yours. Her hands trembled. She wanted to say no, she wanted to scream. But all she said was, I don't know where I belong anymore. Perhaps, Johar said, stepping close enough for her to hear his pulse, you are not meant to belong somewhere. But with someone. Melari stared up into his eyes, watched the color shimmer. Show me, she said. He didn't move. She reached forward, touched his temple with her fingers. And in the space between them, the garden of memory opened. His truths were different than she expected. Loneliness. Not isolation, but the ache of being needed only for your knowledge, not your heart. A childhood of silence. A longing for connection that never found root. And now, her, unexpected, broken, strong in ways even she didn't understand. Melari wept. Johar touched her hand. No words. Just shared silence. And in that silence, something bloomed. Not duty. Not destiny. Something new. The bar on Astroport 7 smelled like burned coolant and synth rum. Tomas Ever slouched in the far corner booth, half watching the screen's overhead flash system warnings and lost cargo alerts. He nursed a cracked mug of lukewarm Stimbrew, the bitter taste barely enough to keep his eyes open. 3 jobs in 6 weeks and not one had paid out clean. Pirates on the outer rim. A cargo manifest rigged with counterfeits. And then the worst, getting ghosted by a corp buyer after delivery. He was running low on fuel. Lower on credits. And the ship's AI had started threatening to lock him out of the NAV system unless he ran another diagnostic. Again. You Tomas Ever, a voice asked, soft, unfamiliar. He looked up. The woman standing before him wore a cloak of starlight weave, threads that shimmered like shifting galaxies. Her skin was the color of polished copper, and her eyes shimmered pale violet. She looked too clean for this place, too composed. "Who's asking?" he muttered. "I need passage off this station," she said. "To the Drift Ward regions. I have charts and payment." Tomas arched a brow. "Everyone has charts. And what kind of payment?" She sat before he invited her. Her cloak shifted as she moved, folding like light through water. "Navigation protocols," she said. "Paths not logged in the central databases. Shortcuts through unstable space." He frowned. "Unstable's a word I don't love hearing." "You'll survive. If you trust me." He laughed once. "I don't trust anyone with starlight in their wardrobe." "Then trust your luck," she said. "Because without me, you're 2 jobs from repo." Tomas stared at her, then down at the stimbrew, wondering if he'd finally lost it. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. Then, Keshri. 3 hours later, they left orbit. His ship, the Wildner, was a patched-up hauler with a few personality quirks. She ran hot, rattled during drift bends, and occasionally shut down non-essential systems during atmospheric entry, which made landing more of a suggestion than a guarantee. Keshri said nothing as she buckled into the co-pilot's seat. She simply plugged a crystalline key into the NAV console and watched the star map bloom in blue-white light. Tomas whistled low. The paths the AI projected were unlike anything he'd seen, tightly curved jumps threading through gravitational anomalies that would normally tear a ship apart. "This is how you plan to get us across the drift ward sectors?" he asked. "You can follow it, or you can take the long way and run out of fuel. You realize one wrong calculation and we're fried atoms." She looked at him, calm. "I've done it before. On ships with better life insurance, I bet." He keyed in the course. The AI beeped twice in protest, then grudgingly recalculated. They jumped. Over the next 3 days, Tomas learned exactly 2 things about Keshri. First, she didn't sleep much. Instead, she sat in the lounge with her eyes closed, tracing slow patterns across a palm-sized orb that pulsed with soft light. He'd caught her humming once, but the tune changed too quickly to follow. Second, she knew things she shouldn't. At one point, the AI flagged a drift pocket that wasn't on the official charts. He muttered, annoyed. Keshri walked in, pointed at the console, and said, "Cut left 37 degrees. It's a hollow wave. Not a collapse." He followed her instructions. They sailed through clean. "How the hell did you know that?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. "Because I've been here," she finally said. "But not in ways you'd understand." He didn't press. Not then. On the 5th night, the Wildner passed a dust veil that shimmered with decaying energy. The stars vanished, leaving them suspended in a void thicker than silence. Tomas dimmed the cabin lights and poured a ration of actual liquor, rare, precious. "You want one?" he asked. Keshri took the cup without a word. They drank in silence. "You ever gonna tell me why you're really out here?" he asked. "I told you," she said. "I needed passage." "Yeah, and I needed a reliable NAV path and a financial miracle. I didn't ask the gods for a passenger with quantum instincts." Keshri swirled the liquor in her glass. "Have you ever seen time burn?" she asked. He blinked. "What?" "Have you ever watched a moment disintegrate, like paper in flame? Seen an entire memory collapse under the weight of a choice not made?" "Can't say I have," he said carefully. "But it sounds like something people don't survive." "Some don't," she said softly. "Some fracture." "And you?" She didn't answer. He noticed then that her hands were trembling. The next drift pass was the worst yet. The AI screamed alerts. Inertial dampeners failed. Alarms flared across every console. Tomas fought the controls, teeth bared. Where the hell is the exit vector? Left, Keshri shouted, grabbing the chair to steady herself. He turned hard. Stars reappeared. The ship snapped back to normal gravity so fast that Tomas hit the console. His vision spun. They drifted in silence. Keshri slumped against the wall, shaking. "You okay?" he asked. She looked up at him with those violet eyes, wide and wild. "I can't do this again," she whispered. "Not this way." "Do what again?" She touched the orb at her hip. It cracked. A shimmer of blue light spiraled from it, fragments of what looked like a starfield in reverse. Tomas froze. "What is that?" "A temporal anchor," she said. "What's left of one?" "Your time fractured," he said, voice barely a whisper. "You're a walker." She nodded once. "Hell," he muttered. "You're not from now, are you?" "Not exactly." Over the next hours, the story unfolded. Keshri was born under a collapsing star. Not metaphorically. Literally. Her people were called the Asareth, a race that learned to walk the folds of probability, to see time as pathways, not linear roads. But something went wrong. One fold too far. A moment they should not have touched. Their world imploded, not with flame, but erasure. Keshri survived, barely, tethered to time by the last anchor crystal. She drifted, glimpsing futures and pasts that never stayed. For years, centuries, she wandered. Each reality faded like breath on glass. But then she saw this one. And she stayed. "Why?" Tomas asked. She looked at him, searching. "Because in this thread," she said, "you listen." Tomas didn't know what to say. So he said nothing. But the next time she swayed, he caught her arm. And when the ship docked on the edge of the driftward expanse, instead of dropping her off, he asked. "What if you stayed?" Keshri blinked. "You'd keep me here. Knowing what I am. You're a passenger who kept me alive. You're someone who sees stars before they burn. And you're here. Right now." She stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly, she reached out. Her hand touched his. Their minds didn't link. Their souls didn't merge. But something grounded. Anchored. Chose. That night, the stars burned steady. And she didn't drift. Not once. Halen Vis had been to dying worlds before, but none as beautiful as Yaren. From orbit, it shimmered like a fractured pearl, ringed with glass-like auroras that danced in soft spirals. The moon's ocean was famous, luminescent, mirror-surfaced, and impossibly still. But beneath the glimmer, the planet was sick. Atmospheric degradation at 27%, the AI chimed. Oceanic memory density collapsing. Tidal mind fields no longer stable. Halen ignored the voice. He leaned closer to the viewport of his survey pod, watching the ocean ripple in patterns that seemed almost intentional. Waves forming circles. Spirals. Repeating sequences, as though the water remembered something it couldn't speak. He'd seen water die. On Mars Terra 92, the rivers had faded to dust. On Melior Prime, chemical warfare turned oceans to sludge. But this wasn't chemical. This was cognitive decay. Halen was here to observe. Document. Advise. Earth's Restoration Corps wanted data, not emotion. But already, his breath fogged the glass, his chest tight with something unprofessional. Grief. The pod touched down on the shoreline with a soft hiss. Halen stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the luminescent sand. The air was cool, tinged with salt and static. His pulse monitor chirped. The ambient neural fields were high, Yaren's waters were still active. Still conscious. He set up the scanning equipment near the surf's edge. Spectral filters clicked into place. Pulses of light fired into the water. Reading scrolled across his screen. Pattern cohesion dropping, he muttered. Resonance decay approaching critical. He paused. A figure stood in the shallows. Tall. Limbed in pale light. Hair made of threads that swayed without wind. Not human. Not hostile. Halen reached for his communicator. Stopped. The figure tilted its head. Then walked toward him. You bring machines, the figure said. The voice was not spoken aloud, but into him. Like song passed through water. Halen stumbled backward. You're alive. The figure stepped closer. Their skin shimmered like liquid glass. Their face held no hard lines, no sharp edges. Eyes wide, depthless, filled with starlight. You are the one who watches endings, they said. Halen swallowed. I'm here to monitor the decline. My name is Halen Viss. Ecologist. I didn't know. He didn't finish. The being extended a hand. I am Rhinaith. Of the Halemere tide. The last voice of Yaren's glass mind. Halen stared at the hand. Hesitated. Then took it. The connection sparked, not pain, not shock, but recognition. As if a boundary had shifted. Rhinaith's mind shimmered against his like a mirror catching sunlight. You don't want us to go, he whispered. We never learned how to leave, Rhinaith replied. That night, Halen stayed on the beach. The scan pod powered down. Rhinaith sat beside him, watching the tide. Our ocean remembers every voice that passed through it, they said. We are not like your people. We do not archive with machines. We sing into water. Halen nodded slowly. Liquid memory storage. I've read about your kind. But I thought. He stopped. Rhinaith glanced sideways. You thought we were gone. Halen nodded. We are almost gone, Rhinaith admitted. The mind field thins. When it breaks, there will be no us. Halen didn't speak for a while. Then, what caused it? Extraction, Rhinaith said. Your kind took what was too delicate to share. Halen closed his eyes. It wasn't the first time. Restoration Corps came after the damage. But he always carried the shadow of the before. In the days that followed, he kept coming back. Rhinaith met him at the edge of tide, always without words, always with presence. They walked the shoreline together. They sang, sometimes, soft tones that echoed in the waves. And when Halen asked what the songs meant, Rhinaith only smiled and said, they are what we remember when we are afraid to forget. Halen began to hum with them. Out of tune. But the ocean seemed to accept it. And when he spoke of earth, of rain and metal trees and the smell of burning fuel, Rhinaith listened with the attention of someone who had never left home. Do you miss it? They asked. Sometimes, he said. But mostly I just don't belong anywhere else. Perhaps that's why you understand dying things. Halen looked at them. You're not dying. Rhinaith raised a translucent brow. Then what are we doing? Halen didn't answer. By the 6th day, his reports were late. His superior sent a message. This. Reminder, your task is survey, not entanglement. Recommend returning before escalation. Orders to prepare Yaren for Phase 1 harvest approved. Halen stared at the words. Harvest, he muttered. They'd approved it. The ocean still lived. Rhinaith still spoke. He crushed the communicator in one hand and stepped into the surf. Rhinaith waited. They already knew. They want to take the tide core, he said. They think it's still viable for extraction. They will kill us to save themselves. Halen's voice cracked. There has to be another way. Rhinaith looked out at the water. There always is. But few choose it. That night, the tide rose higher than ever before. Rhinaith brought him to the deep cove. There, beneath the silver-lit waves, stood pillars of crystal, humming, alive. Memories shimmered between them like drifting flame. "This is our beginning," Rhinaith said. Halen watched, breath caught. "Show me," he whispered. Rhinaith touched the pillar. Halen's vision filled with images, not eyes, but memory itself. A child singing beneath a sky of falling stars. A tide of voices carrying names through generations. A world with no war. No walls. And then, the first drills. The first tear. Silence where song should have been. Halen staggered back. "You remember everything," he said. "It is our burden," Rhinaith replied. "And then, what will you carry forward, Halen Vis?" He made his choice the next morning. Instead of transmitting the data, he corrupted it. Instead of leaving, he dismantled the signal relay. Instead of retreating, he stood in front of the last tide core and waited. When they came for the extraction, he blocked them. Alone. One man against machines built for harvest. "Stand down," they barked. Halen didn't move. "This moon is under Resource Order 117, the officer said. "Step aside or face court-martial." Halen looked at the surf. Then back at them. "Then court-martial me." They raised weapons. But before a shot could fire, the ocean sang. Not noise. Resonance. The water rose. Wrapped around Halen's feet. The machines froze. And Rhinaith emerged. Light in every step. Voice clear. "You do not belong here." The machines shorted. The relay collapsed. And when the humans retreated, the ocean fell silent again. Halen stayed. The core disavowed him. But Yaren welcomed him. Rhinaith became more than guardian. More than voice. They became his balance. His reflection. His choice. And when they stood together at the edge of the tide, hands entwined, neither asked what came next. Because for the first time, they weren't watching the world die. They were learning how to live.